Hey everybody out in YouTube land, what's going on? This is Chris Atkins here, and today I am again talking about my favorite lenses 2022. Thanks for joining us today. We're talking about lenses, and before I start, I have to say I was driving today and that song by Royal Blood, Hold On, came on, and I was like, wow, what a great song. And I'd heard about this site called Licked, and I thought I'd check it out, and they have not sponsored this. I have had to pay for the subscription, and I've had to pay for this song, but it is very, very cool. If you are interested in using popular songs, maybe you have a favorite artist and you want to incorporate them into your YouTube videos, well, now you can with Licked. I've got a link in the description below. Check them out. This is not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form, so I'm giving you my honest opinion. And wow, Hold On by Royal Blood, what a great song. Speaking of hold on, let's talk about holding on to some of these lenses. Is that a good transition? Is that a good segue? I did a video a little while ago about some of my favorite lenses and what I was using at the time, and oddly enough, things have changed. I'm using different stuff. What happened to all those Canon lenses that I've got? Why are you only seeing Sony lenses on this little desk in my office right now? I know I'm gonna get a lot of grief for this. I love Canon glass, but at this moment in time, I am in Sony land. And before, when I was using the FS7 and I was using the A7S II and the FS5 and all that kind of stuff, I had some Sony lenses, but very often I was using my Canon lenses, or I was using some Rokinon lenses. But now that I'm using the A7S III and I'm using the FX9, the autofocus in those cameras is so amazing. And I never thought I would be somebody that used autofocus, but it is very, very cool. And I've discovered that, you know, Sony, their cameras, they seem to work best with Sony lenses. Now, that's not to say that you can't use a Tamron or a Sigma. They work very well with those too. And very often you can get some really good, more affordable lenses. And if you like to pixel peep, there are guys out there that will show you how in some ways the Tamrons and Sigmas are maybe in some ways slightly better than a Sony. Always less expensive. But I thought, I'm in Sony land, I might as well go all in. I have been selling my Canon lenses, and I have been buying, very often used, I've been buying some Sony glass. And I have to say, I'm not regretting it. So the first purchase I made was the Sony G Master 16-35. And I bought this used off of Kijiji, so it was great. I got this used, I got it, pretty decent price for a lens that was really, I think the guy had used it once and realized it wasn't what he needed. But the 16-35 G Master, I really love this lens. This has become a go-to lens very often for my B camera. If I'm setting up multi-camera interview and I have one of the cameras on the slider, or I just need that two-shot, the 16-35 is amazing. It is a 2.8. This lens has been out for a while, so a lot of you already know about it, but I'm just giving you my experience with it. I love the sharpness of the glass. I love the range from 16 to 35. This on the FX9, when you're shooting with the full 6K sensor, it is amazing. In fact, I found when I throw the FX9 up on my shoulder and I have this on and you want to follow somebody around, it's almost like having a gimbal. You know, there is no stabilization, but having that on your shoulder with this nice wide thing going through small spaces, small hallways, small rooms, that kind of thing. Yeah, very, very cool lens. What I don't like about this lens, of course, the price. Sony charges way more than everybody else. But the other thing that I'm not crazy about this is just the weight. This is a pretty heavy lens. The Tamron version, a friend of mine has that, and I noticed that it was significantly lighter than this. The other lens that I picked up is the Sony G, it's not a G Master, but it is the 24-105. This is a great all-around lens. I love the fact that it has image stabilization built into the lens. So when you pair that with the A7S III and the internal image stabilization that has, you've got a pretty great handheld solution, and it gives you quite a range from 24-105. And with that full frame sensor, you're getting a true 24 and a true 105. It's not like in the cropped sensor mode of some of the older cameras. So this is a great lens to have in your kit. Again, when I'm using my FX9 and I'm shooting an interview, this lens on another camera on the B camera. Gives you more options, more versatility, and being stabilized if you have to run and gun, this is a go-to lens. This also works great on the FX9 as well too. Now, a lens that I talked about a little bit before in my last favorite lenses video was the 50. Now, I couldn't show you this lens because it was actually on the camera that was being used to film me at the time. But this is the Sony 50mm. It's a 1.8. and it is a pretty inexpensive lens. This 50mm lens, this has become my go-to lens for shooting interviews. I love the 1.8 aperture on it, and I love that this is one of the cheapest lenses you can get from Sony. It's not expensive at all. They do have, I believe, a G Master 50 as well, and there's been times when I thought, oh, maybe I should get the G Master 50mm. And then I think, why? I'd be spending a lot more money, and this gets the job done. And it works amazing with the autofocus. When I've got a sit-down interview, I lock onto that person's eye, and if they're moving forward and back, and it's keeping track, it's keeping up with them. It is great. You're seeing this on the A7R3 right now. The A7S3 is what's recording me, and it probably has that little box on my eye. Does it? Yes. Yeah, Everett says it does. Everett says it does, so you can't see it, but it's there. This lens for an interview lens is amazing. And I've used it mostly on the FX9, which looks kind of funny to have such a big camera body and then this little stubby lens sticking out the front. But this has become a major go-to lens, and I am so glad that I bought it. Now, we've talked about this guy before, and we talked about putting this on the A7S3, which I do from time to time. However, most of the time, this is on the FX9, especially if I'm doing a run and gun situation. The reason why I would choose this lens over the 24 to 105 is the fact that it's got the power zoom. Right? Power zoom, when I've got the FX9 on my shoulder and I've got the zoom rocker in my hand, I can zoom in and out just like I used to do back with the ENG cameras. For those of you who aren't familiar with those, electronic news gathering. Yeah, I believe that's what it's called. But that's the old school on the shoulder, running around, grabbing shots. And this lens, again, it's an excellent lens. It's not a parfocal lens, which, man, I really wish it was. Those big broadcast lenses that we used to use back in the day were parfocal, and I believe you can get some adapters and get some of those lenses and adapt it. Maybe at some point I'll do that. This, with the autofocus capabilities of the FX9, now makes it almost as if it doesn't need to be a parfocal lens. It works great. Before I'd have to, plan out my shoot, and I'd be zooming and focusing at the same time, and now I just zoom all day long and it doesn't matter. That little box is on my subject's eye and it's keeping them in focus, and it's great. So highly recommend this lens. If you are getting the FX9 kit, me personally, I would definitely get this lens with it. I have not had a chance to use an FX6 yet or an FX3. I would imagine that this lens on those cameras would be wonderful, but because you can't really throw those cameras on your shoulder like you can with the FX9, it would be really heavy and cumbersome. So these are the lenses that I've been using for 2022, and I have a few things that I might change around coming up to 2023. I am looking at the Sony 70-200, the new version of that. And I'd like to get into some more telephoto work, so I know Sony's got a few options there as well. But what do you think? Should I stick with Sony? Should I try a Tamron? Should I try a Sigma? Do you have a favorite? Do you disagree? Do you agree? I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you give me some comments below. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Why don't you just sit back and listen to some Royal Blood as we end this segment for 2022 lenses. I love this. Check out Licked. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.